December 2018. An air traffic controller in the Virgin Islands is sitting in his tower when he sees a helicopter touch down. Jeffrey Epstein gets out, and with him, 3 girls. According to the controller's testimony to federal investigators, they looked young, really young, between 11 and 18 years old. Now here's the thing. Court records show this wasn't the first time. Multiple airport employees gave similar accounts to investigators. They'd seen this pattern repeat itself. The staff knew, the local police knew. According to those same witness statements, nobody did anything. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in the New Mexico desert, there's this massive property, Zorro Ranch.
Run my own ranch. I can think the thoughts I want to think. I can do the work I want to do. I'm free to explore as I see fit.
Public records show Epstein owned 10,000 acres there, private airstrip, 26,700 square foot mansion, and in November 2019, someone claiming to be a former employee sent an email to the FBI. The allegation? The 2 girls are buried somewhere in those hills. The email claimed they died during what it described as rough fetish encounters. Strangulation. Now, I want you to sit with that for a second. Because this month, February 2026, New Mexico's state land commissioner put out a formal request asking authorities to investigate these burial claims. But according to FBI records and statements from New Mexico officials, federal law enforcement has never searched that property. Not once. What I'm about to show you isn't just about one predator. Court documents, banking records, university investigations, they all paint a picture of how money and power can bend systems that are supposed to protect people. For decades.
So let's talk about how this operation functioned. Because when prosecutors put together their case, what they documented was disturbingly organized. According to the U.S. Virgin Islands Attorney General's lawsuit, Case ST20CV00031, you can read it yourself. From 2001 to 2019, that's 18 years, Epstein ran what they called a criminal enterprise. Not just crimes, an enterprise. That's the actual legal term they used. Court filings detail how it worked. Computerized lists tracking young women and girls in the Virgin Islands. Scheduling systems organizing what they internally called sessions, 3 per day, according to the documents. And here's something that comes up repeatedly in court testimony. They use the word work as code. Think about that. Work. One survivor testified under oath about trying to escape by swimming off the island. Her sworn statement describes how the crew organized a search party, found her, and took her passport. Another witness testified that when she tried to leave, they threatened her with physical restraint. Flight logs that were subpoenaed show his private Boeing 727, the one people called the Lolita Express, made countless trips. And according to survivor testimony given under oath, assaults happened on that plane during flights. But the Caribbean island wasn't the only location. According to testimony in various legal proceedings, multiple women said they were trafficked to Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. Several testified in depositions about what happened there. Remember that email about bodies? The sender wanted 1 Bitcoin for what they claimed was video evidence. And according to the state land commissioner's letter from this February, they formally asked for an investigation. What we know for certain, federal law enforcement has not executed a search warrant there. That's confirmed by public records and official statements. Think about that for a minute. Okay, so trafficking is horrific enough. But according to a 2019 New York Times investigation, Epstein had something else in mind for that New Mexico ranch. The Times reported, based on interviews with scientists and businessmen who'd spoken with him, that Epstein talked about impregnating 20 women at a time there. His stated goal, according to these sources, spreading his DNA to, quote, seed the human race. I'm not making this up. This is from the New York Times investigation. Computer scientist Jaron Lanier told investigators something interesting. According to his account, Epstein would throw these dinner parties with women who had impressive academic credentials. Lanier said he realized Epstein was screening them, auditioning candidates to have his children. This wasn't just trafficking. This was eugenics.
Now, here's the question. How do you fund an operation like this? The answer is in the tax records. Between 2005 and 2007, tax documents show his foundation gave geneticist George Church $686,000. In 2003, according to Harvard's own internal review, he pledged $30 million to their evolutionary dynamics program. They received about $6.5 million. An invoice from June 2014, it's in the released documents, shows a charge of $193,400 for stem cell research aimed at longevity enhancement. Now, here's where it gets weird. In August 2012, Epstein sent an email. It's part of the public record now. He wrote that his biology gurus at Harvard told him that intelligence agency signal processing capabilities could be used to break the DNA code. His exact words, "It would be great to know which agency button to push." He was trying to recruit NSA codebreakers to work on genetics. Here's what a Harvard internal review published in May 2020 documented. Between 2010 and 2018, after his conviction, records show Epstein visited Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics more than 40 times. Let that sink in. 40 visits post-conviction. And according to that same Harvard review, more than two-thirds of Epstein's scientific donations, $6.5 million, went to one person, mathematician Martin Nowak, who ran the program for evolutionary dynamics. George Church's public calendar showed 6 documented meetings with Epstein in 2014 alone. The Boston Globe verified this through calendar entries that were online at the time. Some of these meetings? According to those same calendar entries, they included dinners with LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman. This was 5 years after Epstein's 2008 conviction. According to released correspondence and visitor logs, we're talking about Nobel Prize winners, Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered the quark, Stephen Hawking, Oliver Sacks. Epstein flew them to his island, according to flight records. At parties in his Manhattan townhouse, according to attendees who later talked to journalists, he'd discuss DNA and his breeding plans. The scientific elite didn't just take his money. According to these institutional reviews, they legitimized him. They gave him credibility. And that credibility protected him. Recently released documents provide information about Epstein's network of contacts. Let me be clear about what's documented versus what's alleged. According to photographs included in the Department of Justice's released files, former President Bill Clinton appears at Epstein's properties. Flight logs, which are public record, confirm multiple trips on Epstein's aircraft in the early 2000s. In 2002, according to a published interview in New York Magazine, Trump made specific comments about Epstein. The quote, which is on record, describes Epstein as a terrific guy and notes, "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Prince Andrew appears extensively in released documents. According to court filings, Virginia Giuffre, hootied by suicide in 2025, alleged under oath that she was trafficked to Prince Andrew when she was 17 years old. Prince Andrew settled a lawsuit with Ms. Giuffre in 2022. King Charles has removed Andrew's royal titles. Bill Gates, according to multiple documented meetings and photographs, met with Epstein on several occasions after 2008. A photo from the released files shows Gates with Epstein and scientist Boris Nikolic at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Gates has publicly called this association a huge mistake. According to Apollo Global Management's SEC filings, billionaire Leon Black paid Epstein $158 million between 2012 and 2017 for estate planning services. After Epstein's conviction, $158 million. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, according to released documents and his own acknowledgement, visited the island with family members in 2012. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers also appears in the documents. According to Harvard's review, Summers advocated for accepting Epstein's donations and met with him even after the 2008 conviction. Hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin and his wife Eva, according to court testimony, allowed Epstein to continue visiting their home with young women even after his conviction. Here's what we can verify. More than 3 million pages of documents have been released. According to inventory lists, this includes approximately 2,000 video files and 180,000 images. According to statements from the Department of Justice, no additional prosecutions beyond Ghislaine Maxwell are currently planned. But Epstein's real protection didn't come from scientists. It came from the U.S. government, 2008. According to FBI documents, they'd built a 53-page indictment, testimony from dozens of alleged victims, mountains of evidence. Legal experts who reviewed the case said he was facing life in prison. What actually happened? U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary, negotiated a plea deal. According to the signed agreement, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state prostitution charges, served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail. And here's the part people often miss. The agreement included work release, allowing him to leave up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Testimony that emerged later indicated he was having sex with women during these work hours. But here's the worst part. The plea agreement granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators, named and unnamed. Let that sink in. Unnamed co-conspirators got immunity. Former federal prosecutors who've reviewed this deal told news outlets this was very unusual. They questioned how such broad immunity could be justified. In 2019, a federal judge ruled the agreement violated victims' rights because they weren't properly notified. The Justice Department reviewed this in 2020 and found Acosta showed poor judgment, but didn't find grounds for misconduct charges. Translation: he did something terrible, but not technically illegal. Here's something revealing. Prosecutor Marie Villafana told DOJ investigators that if they'd gotten Epstein's computers, quote, it would have put this case completely to bed. According to her testimony, Acosta blocked her from getting those computers. So here's my question. Why would a U.S. attorney give blanket immunity to unnamed co-conspirators? Unless he was protecting someone powerful. Some observers have raised questions about possible intelligence connections. Let's look at what's actually documented versus what's speculation. According to infrastructure records, in 2005, Epstein arranged for fiber optic cable installation to Little St. James. These records show this created an independent communication system for the island. According to journalist Vicky Ward, Acosta allegedly told Trump transition officials in 2017 that he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Acosta has publicly denied making such statements. Can we definitively prove intelligence connections? Based on publicly available documents, no. Do certain aspects of the case raise questions? According to various intelligence analysts who've commented publicly, yes. So what can we verify from the documented evidence? First, according to financial records and court filings, wealth appears to have influenced legal outcomes. Banks handled over $1 billion in suspicious transactions, but reported them only after Epstein died, according to settlement documents. Second, according to institutional reviews from Harvard, MIT, and other universities, these institutions continued accepting donations and maintaining relationships with Epstein after his conviction. Third, according to Department of Justice statements, despite millions of pages of evidence, no additional prosecutions beyond Ghislaine Maxwell are currently planned. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence according to Bureau of Prisons records. Fourth, according to testimony from multiple witnesses in various legal proceedings, they reported abuse at multiple properties. According to publicly available records, federal law enforcement has not executed search warrants at all mentioned locations, specifically regarding the burial allegations at Zorro Ranch. According to the New Mexico State Land Commissioner's February 2026 letter, these claims have been formally referred for investigation. But according to FBI records, no search has yet occurred.
Jeffrey Epstein died in federal custody August 2019. But the system that enabled him, still running. The banks that processed over $1 billion in suspicious transactions, still operating. The universities that took his money and gave him legitimacy, still prestigious. The politicians who flew on his plane, many still in office. The scientists who met with him for years after his conviction, still conducting research. And somewhere in New Mexico, according to that email, 2 girls might still be buried in those hills. According to official statements, nobody's looking for them. Now look, these aren't conspiracy theories. These aren't rumors. These are facts. From court filings, from government investigations, from public records. The question isn't whether these things happened. The documents prove they did. So here's what I want to know. When you have 3 million pages of evidence, when you have testimony from dozens of victims, when you have flight logs, banking records, photos, videos, why is only one person in prison? Why do banks pay fines but admit no wrongdoing? Why do billionaires write checks and keep their fortunes? Why does everyone just move on? I'll tell you why. Because Epstein wasn't some exception to the rule. He was the rule. He was the system, working exactly as it was designed. And that system? It's still here. Still protecting the powerful, still silencing the victims, still ensuring that money and connections matter more than justice. So what are we going to do about it? Demand transparency. Demand accountability. Demand that 3 million pages of evidence means something. Demand that power answers to the people, not the other way around.